order that is established, when the countries of this world order forgive or forget, this will give time to Putin to start again. So it will give him also the empowerment, because as long as you close your eyes to the crimes of a person, or let's say of a regime, you empower the regime to do the next thing. So the appeasement led to the fact that in 2022 the whole world was shocked. Was shocked not only that the full-scale invasion happened, but also how it happened. It was shocked with the filtration camps, it was shocked with the mass murders in Bucha, in Mariupol, when it was discovered what happened there. People outside Ukraine, just hearing the word Ukraine, cried, because they realized that the attack was unprovoked, completely unprovoked, and the cynical thing is that Russians in Russia, the Russian regime, said that they are attacking Ukraine because Ukrainians do genocide over Ukrainians, or Russian-speaking Ukrainians. So they came to Ukraine to defend Ukrainian Russian language. They came to Ukraine because Russian speakers were under risk. And that is the propaganda that was all over the world, that Russian speakers in Ukraine were under risk. And that is that the president of Ukraine himself was Russian speaker, that Russian speakers in Odessa, in Mariupol, in other cities completely freely lived and live in Ukraine and had never had any issues about Russian language. But this propaganda issue has been still around in the media and used and instrumentalized by different forces and different politicians who want to come on this issue to power. The also thing that I need to mention, because as I'm in Europe and we are in Europe, we have this freedom to talk about it, and freedom to have the platform, and freedom to listen and to have these controversial topics, and freedom of us and of Russian-born and Ukrainian-born to be on one stage and speak about it. That is not what is permitted in Russia. That is for many years, but now especially. So what I want to bring up is a difference in the mentality. Because I was born in Ukraine, I know the mentality. I was actually, since beginning of like 80s, I was watching movies and cartoons, Russian movies and cartoons. So also reading Russian literature and basically Russian culture. But then I studied in Germany and I studied in Austria. So I see the difference in the mentality, and the difference in the mentality is that here we believe in ideals, and we are the continent of idealism and liberalism, and we admire rule of law, we admire human rights, we achieved it so hard. Those who fought the Second World War achieved very hard these values that we have today, especially the value of dignity. But that is not the same thing how Russia sees the world, how Putin sees the world, and he's actually the people as well, not only him, because it is the whole nation today that is under the influence of his regime and listening, and children that are being grown up from small to big, already 10 years under this war propaganda and hate propaganda, hate towards collective West. So the realism in Russia, it's realism, and the realism of Russian politics means that everything has to serve the interest of Russia. Everything. The law should serve the interest of Russia. Russia did not want to obey to the European Convention of Human Rights. In 2015, they said they are not going to listen to the European Court of Human Rights because it takes decisions that are against the interest of Russia. This is not the case in the European Union. In the countries here, when the court takes decision, the country says, yes, okay, we are going to obey. So that's the difference. Here it's a liberalism, there it's a realism, meaning that here the instrument of achieving your interests is law. There it's war, it's aggression, it's an attack. So we have to understand that we deal with the regime and with the country. We have to say, we have to be honest, it's a country, it's a people who are under this regime and who are not protesting this regime, are empowering it. This, it's not possible to fight with flowers, love and idealism. And if this regime gets so far that kills the nation and ready to kill the whole nation because they call it Nazis, or because this nation, as says Putin, is actually Russians anyway. What is Ukraine? Ukrainians don't exist anyway. Those who say they're Ukrainians have to be killed. We have to get rid of them. Don't forget that Putin's today's regime has kidnapped Ukrainian children, 20,000 Ukrainian children. Kidnapping kids, it's an element of genocide. Let's not forget. So we have a criminal in power who has got the arrest warrant from the International Court, Criminal Court, with whom there are some calls for negotiations. Let's imagine a criminal, not who leads the nation, but just a criminal with whom you want to negotiate to stop killing people. Would you negotiate with him or would you put him in the prison? So why with Putin is a different thing. Why we do have to negotiate instead of trying to put him in the prison? I understand that international law and international relations don't really allow it this way, but why shouldn't we apply the same sort of mentality in international relations, thinking of the leaders like we think about the criminals? Sacrificing the whole nation for appeasement of a leader with whom you believe you can have good relations afterwards is not a value, it's not a European value, it's not something that I believe you would stand with. And the calls not to give Ukraine weapons, for instance, is actually a call to sacrifice Ukrainian nation. Because, again, it was not Ukraine who started the first attack, it was Russia. And that Russia kills today enormously huge amount of people, it proves that it actually doesn't value human life at all. Not in Ukraine, but we will hear later from Mariia that not in Russia as well. That's it for my introduction. I will be glad to hear your questions, but I will first let Masha have some commentary or introduction. Thank you.
Well, hello, my name is Mariia Arseenko. Indeed, I am Russian-born, and I'm a part of Russian Solidarity Group, which exists since Bolotnaya, if you're aware of that. It's 2011 when the first big protest in Russia happened. That time, a lot of people, even here in Europe, went to the streets to support those who went against Putin in Moscow. And this international chain of activism started, basically. It's restarted quite hugely in 2021 when Alexei Navalny was poisoned. And all the same people went to the streets to say that, look, please people, look, there is a guy who has the whole FSB or KGB, whatever you prefer, system to kill people the same, inside Russia and abroad. Now it's lost, I know, we have it. It's hugely proven, and a few weeks ago, I think 2 weeks max, Bellingcat released an investigation that Russian FSB agents are killing USA representatives, politician representatives. The same we have found one in Brussels, the same we have found one in Germany, and if they continue to look for them, we will finally find out that people are suddenly dying, not because something really happened to their hearts, but because Russian FSB system is working here and now in Brussels. And this is just a matter of fact. Anyway, coming back to today's topic, first of all, I would like to say that you have much more accurate view of the modern history of Russia than Putin himself, because he likes to fake facts. And though we are talking about modern history, I think we both agree, me and you, that we are born in USSR at that time, not in Russian-born or Ukrainian-born, but we are born in USSR. And the story is much longer, unfortunately, than the modern history which we consider here. Well, coming back to all the topics, I didn't prepare my speech because I wanted to react on Marta's speech and also to answer your questions like a Russian representative. Also, I'm not pretending that I'm pro-Putin, I'm hugely against. So maybe that should be taken into account. I'm an activist. But let me address comment by comment. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Yeah. So, first of all, when the war has started, that was a nice question. I'm not an international lawyer at all, I'm an engineer. And for me, the war has started when I stopped to be welcomed in Ukraine, with a very good reason, because the war has started. And because Crimea was occupied at that time. And then I do believe that every Russian started to find out that there is something happened. Some of us were strongly against occupation, some of us supported, in a way, occupation, saying that Crimea was always a Russian island, or whatever is this romantic idea of these territories belonging. But I'm coming from the area which was very close to Ukraine. Basically, it's the border. And I can say that it never happened to me before Putin came with his ideas of Great Russia, or whatever his idea is. I never thought in my life till that time, when I was already more than 20 years old, that Ukraine can be considered as a part of Russia, any part of Ukraine. I never thought that. Like, for me, it was very clear that here I live, then I come to the border, then I show my document, then I fill the declaration for Ukrainians, then I pass the border, my luggage is checked, and then I'm in another country. That's not the question. So we never pretended, we never thought, like human beings, that we might occupy the territory. It came from somewhere, and I wonder where it came from. So, for me, the international law, I don't know, but the idea that there is another country just nearby is clear. And it was always so since I was a child. Another thing which I would like to mention is that indeed, even here in Europe, since I'm Russian, I think people address very different topics to me and to Ukrainians when they hear that I'm from Russia. And they say sometimes are opening up their pro-Russian position or pro-Putin position, because they think that I am eventually also in the same team. And they always tell me, but look, those Ukrainian nationalists, oh yes, indeed, those Ukrainian nationalists, very interesting guys. Myself, I had an opportunity to travel in Ukraine quite a lot. Sometimes more than some Ukrainians, I can pretend. And I have been in a capital of what they call Ukrainian nationalism, well, one of the capitals. I have been to Lviv, I have been to Ivano-Frankivsk, I have been to Verkhovina, where normally Gutsul, those scary Gutsul people, you might be not knowing that name, but they exist. It's villagers from the mountains who will eat alive any Russian being which will come to their village. They didn't eat me. Well, basically they were proposing me a very special kind of vodka, or gorilka, which we call samagon, and they were sharing with me drinks and food and showing me around, and I was an absolute stranger to them. And it was already in 2018, so for you to understand, after we introduced the topics, war was already there. I came there when the war was already there. And they knew very well that I'm from Russia, and I'm standing here in front of you, and no Ukrainian nationalists ate me alive. So Putin said that it would happen suddenly. Well, I survived, I can say. And another topic which I would like to comment also is basically corruption. Corruption in Russia is famous. I don't want to introduce this topic hugely because we can talk about that, I think, during 3 days and we won't finish. However, if you have any questions, I might answer them. This corrupted mind was inflaming not only Ukraine, but all the countries which are post-Soviet, and also it's already proven that corruption existed here in Europe. And dealing with Russia, you always need to understand that basically they are looking for shortcuts, always. And if you are trying to make any deals with Russian representatives, be aware that they will corrupt you at some point, or corrupt a neighbor of you, or corrupt someone of you. That will just happen, because honestly, in Russia, to get to a doctor, you need to pay already corrupted money. You want to get your exam passed in the university, you learned everything, good for you, then you might be a professional. But if you don't pay, you don't pass. That's just the reality I went through. Me less because I'm an engineer, but if you go to social science, trust me, you won't be able to escape this even. That's just the system which works like that. It's really at all levels of your existence, and I can prove it easily if you don't trust. And maybe the only point which I really want to address from the whole speech, Marta said that we here admire human rights. Indeed, seems so. We admire human rights. But I'm always very confused, and not so many years in Belgium, 6 to be precise, do we admire really human rights?